Hello everyone, Dan Lucas from Credo here, and welcome to today's video in our 50 States in 50 Days series. Today we are doing the 25th state admitted to the Union, Arkansas. And Arkansas was admitted to the Union on June 15th, 1836. So we're getting closer and closer to that kind of Civil War era, and you kind of see how these states are really building up. And it's really amazing that these states were so young as part of the Union when the Civil War came around. There was so much just kind of infighting going back and forth, is that these states really weren't that established. A lot of these states were still very young as far as being admitted to the Union. So that's just kind of interesting. But anyway, in looking at Arkansas, Arkansas has a lot of tax credits. And if you go to like the tax incentives and tax credit legislation they have, I mean, there's just an overwhelming amount of items. So my first piece of advice is, if you pay tax in Arkansas, or an Arkansas resident, Arkansas business owner, that you really take some time to look at a lot of these credits, because it's not one of those states where I can just kind of list off 5 or 6 credits, and if you think you apply to one of those, you look it up. There's a ton of stuff, and there's a lot of niche credits that apply to certain industries that are doing certain things. They have a lot of credits that are for what they call targeted businesses, and they list different types of businesses that they're trying to help with that particular credit. So again, my overall advice is, if you are in Arkansas or paying Arkansas taxes, that you really take some time to look over everything, just because there's such a large volume of credits and incentives. It almost seems like it'd be hard to believe that somebody wouldn't be able to find something that they would qualify for. So that being said, I am going to go through some credits that I highlighted that I thought were pretty relevant or interesting, that might help you to kind of nudge you a little bit if some of these sound like they might apply to you, to look at some more of these credits or to ask us specific questions. So with no further ado, I'm going to start with something called the Advantage Arkansas Income Tax Credit, and it is it's a job creation credit, and you have to sign a specific financial incentive agreement with the Arkansas Economic Development Commission. So there's some pre-work that you have to do on this credit, but it looks like it's a really big credit, so probably worth a lot of the work up front to do it. And it has to do with the amount of annual payroll you have, and you earn the credit based on a percentage of your payroll of new full-time people. So if you're hiring people, this is a very generous credit. I'm kind of assuming this is going to be the flagship credit for people that are creating jobs, and you get a credit for each year for 5 years. So if you hire a new person, you get a credit of that person for 5 years. So that's really, really generous. If you can't use the credits, and for somehow they build up and you kind of bank them and you don't have any tax to use them against, you can carry them forward for 9 years beyond the year that the credit was first earned. So the first year, the year that you actually earn the credit, you can carry it forward for 9 years until you can use it, right? So that's really nice too. So they're really trying to make sure that not only they're incentivizing you to hire new full-time people, they're giving you the credits, and they're giving it to you for a 5-year period, and then they're letting you roll it forward for 9 years. So they're obviously really trying to push this activity. Oh, excuse me. All right. So, but remember, you have to look at that in advance, or you have to get that signed up with in advance with the Arkansas Economic Development Commission. Okay. The next one is going to be the apprenticeship program. And like I've talked about in other videos, I love the apprenticeship programs. I think it's a lost art. I wish it would come back more. Now, this is for people that are at least 16 years of age. It's an apprenticeable occupation, they call it. And let's see, you can get an income tax credit in the amount of $2,000, or 10% of the wages earned by the youth apprentice. So it's a pretty nice credit there. So look into that if you're interested in the apprenticeship program. Next one I want to talk about is the ARC Plus income tax credit, and that is basically it kind of piggybacks on the one we just talked about, the Advantage Arkansas income tax credit. So basically, the ARC Plus program, it says plus because it's basically a piggyback credit on top of the other credit that we talked about, is the first one we talked about, and it requires a minimum investment and a minimum payroll. based on the new full-time permanent employees hired after the date of the financial incentive agreement that you already signed, right? So you're going to get another 10% income tax credit based on further investment in these people once you've hired them. Okay, so if you're hiring people and then you're investing in them or investing in areas that'll help them do their job, you're going to get more credit. Okay, let's talk about the child care facility early childhood program credit. So this is pretty neat because you get an income tax credit of 3.9% of the annual salary of personnel that you hire, that you employ exclusively for providing child care services to your employees. Or you get a $5,000 income tax credit for the first year the business provides its employees with a child care facility. So if you have a child care facility in-house, this is obviously for bigger businesses, 3.9% salary or $5,000 per person. That's really cool. So that's pretty big. So if it's something you're interested in, I just highlighted that one because it's a pretty generous credit and it's a pretty nice benefit for people. So if you're interested in that, definitely look up more about that. All right, let's see. Wow, there's so many credits. It's unbelievable. The next one that I wanted to talk about was the equity investment tax credit. And so let's see. This is a discretionary credit. So it is at the discretion of the director of the Arkansas Economic Development Commission, and it's equal to 33.3% of the actual purchase price paid for the equity interest to the business. Now it's limited to 50% of the state income tax you pay that year, but it can be carried forward 9 years. So if you're investing in a business or buying equity for part of business, you have to look this up to see if you qualify because it's just too much money to ignore. Again, it's the equity investment tax credit. And if you're making an investment in a company as equity, you're going to have to look this up and see if you qualify. Okay, we have next one is the Existing Workforce Training Act. So we've talked about training credits in other videos. We've talked about research and development credits, things like that. This is largely directed toward a manufacturing type business, and when you're training people on new systems, new processes, new software, things like that, it can be pretty broad as to what you're training them on. They're going to give you some tax incentives and some tax credits here. I would definitely recommend that you look at this in advance and not just spend the money and then try to calculate the cost later. I would definitely consult with the Arkansas Economic Development Commission on what qualifies for this credit and make sure that the things you're doing qualify. Make sure you don't make any silly or stupid mistakes to not qualify, and then really plan out what you're going to spend on this and what kind of credits you're going to get so that you really understand it and that you don't either overspend or underspend depending on your expectations of the credits. The next one that I highlighted, they have a historic rehabilitation income tax credit. We've talked about that in other states. Arkansas has one that is 25% of the total qualified rehabilitation expenses on the first $500,000 of expenses, and that covers a lot of people. So if you are doing work on historic landmarks or property, real estate, that type of thing, this is definitely something you want to take a look at. It's a pretty generous credit, and they're usually pretty liberal with these credits and not making it too overly difficult to get them. Let's see, there's an in-house research in the area of strategic value income tax credit. Now, this is going to be research expenditures inside your business that provide either strategic value to the business or they are a project that is under the research that has already been identified as a development program by the Arkansas Science and Technology Authority. So you might just want to look up that list first to see if anything qualifies that you're interested in doing or planning on doing anyway, or you can get this approved in advance by application, and you just have to show that it provides strategic value. I wouldn't just write something up that you think has strategic value and send it in. I would do some homework on it, call them, talk to them, call the Arkansas Economic Development Commission like I've talked about before, find out a little more information about qualifying for this and what the process is. But these credits can be humongous, 6 figures and up. So definitely something you're going to want to look at if you are going to be doing some of this type of investing in your business. I mean, these tax credits that you earn You can use them for the first 5 years following the signing of that incentive agreement for 5 years. That's pretty phenomenal. And then you can carry them forward 9 years. So they're really wanting you to make sure you can monetize these credits. Now, kind of a sister credit to that is the in-house research by targeted business income tax credit, and this one is they have a list of 6 different targeted businesses, and you just kind of have to look that up and see if you qualify for that. But again, it's the in-house research by targeted business income tax credit. It's the same credit you can get with the other one we just talked about. It's 33% of the expenses, and let's see. Yeah, you can carry it forward 9 years. You get the 5-year credit just like the other one, so that's pretty neat. So, okay, this one, let's see. The next one I wanted to talk about was the low income housing credit, and this is for taxpayers that own a piece of real estate or an interest in a piece of real estate in a qualified low income building, and it has to be approved by the Arkansas Development Finance Authority. So if you have something in that area, you're going to get a credit of 20% of the cost, and you can't exceed the income tax you already owe, but you can carry it forward for 5 years if you can't use it in that first year. So that's pretty generous, and gives you some time to take advantage of that credit over time. Next one is going to be the motion picture incentives credit, and this is a rebate credit to your qualifying production companies that have been approved by the Arkansas Economic Development Commission, and the rebate is equal to 15% of those costs in connection with a state certified film project. This rebate, let's see. Oh, it says additionally a 10% payroll rebate may be authorized for certain payroll of Arkansas residents. So not instead of that one's additionally. So that's pretty neat. But there's a lot of states that have motion picture and film production type credits. So if you're doing anything in that area, still think something to look at. Okay, let's see what the next one is that I want to talk about. There's the research and development with universities tax credit. This is pretty neat because you can actually do R&D in conjunction with a university and do it on site at your business, and you can get a nice tax credit for it. Like some of these other ones, it's a 33% credit. You can carry it forward for 3 years beyond the year in which the credit was earned, and then you can carry it forward. Actually, it looks like you can carry it forward 9 years as of 2007, so that's a long time ago, but still in effect. You can carry forward 9 years, and the credit, and you can increase the use of the credit from 50% of 100% of the net tax due. So I'm assuming that people were getting this credit and they really weren't able to use all of it, and so it wasn't really providing enough incentive. And so what they did is they said, okay, instead of carrying it forward 3 years and only being able to use it against half your income, we're going to now let you use it for 9 years and knock out 100% of your income. So they've really pushed that one forward. That one's pretty neat, and I think if it was me, I would probably maybe call up the Arkansas Economic Development Commission or the Arkansas Science and Technology Authority, find out what universities are participating in this, and see if there was anything interesting to me that I thought I really wanted to do that would help me and obviously help them, and that's why they give you a credit for it. All right, they have there's another credit that's just called the Qualified Research Credit, and let's see, that gives you this is actually only against corporate income tax, so it's business income tax, and it is 33% of qualified research program. You have to show that you've got this approved in advance. I'm not really sure how this one differs necessarily from some of the other ones, but suffice to say, if you're doing any research, R&D, process improvement, systems improvement, things like that, there's probably a credit in here for you. So definitely something to look at. Let's see, next, they've got the tuition reimbursement tax credit program. And they used to be way more generous with this type of credit. They haven't been as much recently, even on federal. But basically, it'll reimburse your full-time. If you're a company that reimburses full-time people for cost of tuition, books, and fees, then you can get a credit of 30% of the reimbursement, as long as you don't exceed 25% of the income tax liability per year. So, that's pretty good. I would think that you'd have a hard time if you were just a healthy, normal company, even a small company making profit, that you would go over that 25%. But that's a pretty nice That's a nice credit. That's not necessarily a credit that would cause you to do something in that area, but it certainly helps. And it certainly seems like one of those credits that you would easily miss if you didn't know about it. And it's just kind of free money hanging out there. So if you're doing any tuition reimbursement to your employees, you're going to want to look at this. Let's see. And the last one that I had marked is called the venture capital investment credit. I think this is related to the qualified small business credit, which is, qualified small business stock, which is on the federal tax code, and it allows, in certain circumstances, as long as you fulfill the requirements, a $10 million free capital gain upon the sale of your business. It's very popular with serial entrepreneurs and venture capitalists of that sort. But in Arkansas, they're giving you an income tax credit of up to $10 million per fiscal year, as recommended by the Arkansas Development Finance Authority and approved by the State Board of Finance. So that says an income tax credit of $10 million, not $10 million of tax-free income or tax-free gain like qualified small business stock does. So even though maybe it's not directly related, if you're doing venture capital investments in Arkansas, both can apply, it looks like. So if you have, let's say, a $10 million sale in Arkansas, you might get capital gain, you might get free capital gain on that, but what about any extra than that? Piggyback it with this credit, you get $10 million of a tax credit per fiscal year. Now, you have to, and you can carry it forward for 5 years as well. Now, I would never count on this or assume you could get something like this without first digging a lot deeper, knowing the rules. I would definitely talk to the Arkansas Development Finance Authority, make sure that you go through all the approvals to get it approved in advance and by the State Board of Finance. That's just a ton of money. So you're talking about, I get 10 million of tax credits, not just tax exempt income, right? So that's a huge amount of money. So if you're in the VC space, you're going to want to dig into this a little more. I think digging into this right now is a little bit beyond the scope of the video, but suffice to say, if you can take qualified small business stock and piggyback it with something like this, you could really have something. Okay, those are not the only tax credits in Arkansas. Again, there's a ton of tax credits in there. If you are paying taxes in Arkansas, we're looking to do some business there, et cetera, we're looking for states with incentives. Arkansas has a lot of them. You're going to want to review all of them. A lot of them are kind of niche-y and, quite frankly, pretty esoteric. But I think I named up some of the big ones. So if any of those really sort of bent your ear, please, if you have any questions, put a question, comment in the video, send us an email. If you have something specific, we're happy to look it up for you on a case-by-case basis, depending on what you ask for. And we just want to get these in front of people so that people can see more about credits, whether it be a taxpayer or a tax professional. We're just trying to get awareness out to everybody. So thank you for watching my tax video about Arkansas tax credits and incentives, and I will see you on the next video.